state law, then somebody should be working with the legislature to see if we can't do some of this. Because I go down on River Road, down by the skate park, and I see hundreds of people down there bicycling. I don't see a tag, and I don't know any of them. And if I've seen them 40 times, I still wouldn't know them. But they have no way of identifying themselves. And they should, if they're going to be very serious about being on the streets, they should do the same thing we do. They should buy liability insurance. They should have a tag or some way to identify them. So if I see him out of line, I have the option to call in or what, report him or whatever. So if we can't do it, maybe the legislature can next time or whatever. Thank you.
Well, and the only thing I might point out is that you know, that while a license tag does identify a vehicle, it does not identify the driver of that car. It just simply identifies the vehicle, and so, you know, there has to be testimony as to who was driving it, as well as testimony as to who the bicyclist was. So, you know, that doesn't quite go as far as identification, you know, in terms of who the ownership of the bicycle or the vehicle. With that, you know, that's all that's signed up for the public hearing, and I'll go ahead and recess the public hearing until the next council meeting and go to our second public hearing on the legislation regarding the Barron Cross street design. Again, recognizing that it's going to go back to planning and then come back to the council. Anybody that has signed up for that, if you care to come up before us, feel free. Yes, sir.
Mayor and Councilman, my name is Jim Irwin. I am with Irwin Partners, and Greg Jocelyn and myself represent the landowners of this property, which is Jim Jackson and Lisa Farrell. Todd Rice is here with the Hathaway Group, who represents the developer. We do understand that it is going to go back to Planning Commission and go back through the process, which we certainly understand. What our request is tonight, if you look up here on the aerial photo, originally when we went to the Planning Commission, we had our site over here, and we were planning on coming in and accessing the site off of River Road. We have now moved the site here at the request of staff and the mayor and some of the citizens as well, and to take 3rd Street and extend it. There's nothing magic about exactly the pattern that's laid out on 3rd Street, other than it will try to go from this point to this point. Whether the city or whoever wants us to change that around, we're certainly open to doing that. We have had, we feel like, a very constructive meeting with some of the residents in the neighborhood, and we met for about an hour and a half or so. They responded very well and gave some very good comments and thoughts, and we tried to answer them as best we could. We do support, you know, the bike trail coming along River Road here, and that's the reason we've been asked to move to use 3rd Street for our primary access rather than River Road, so we can take the traffic off of that. So that's all I have to say, and we're here to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Again, if there are any other comments, feel free, but other than that, we are, with the concurrence of the sponsor, going to refer this back to planning, and I would intend, as soon as anyone who comments finishes, to go ahead and pull it up and ask, again, Alderman Taylor to take that action, so anybody who's here will know that that has been accomplished. Yes, sir?
Yes, my name is Nick Willis. I'm a resident in Barron Cross. You can see my house on that photo. First, I'd like to thank you for the consideration you gave to the previous project. I think they're going the right way with a lot of the redesign here. I'd like you to please think about this in the coming weeks as it goes back to Planning Commission. First of all, the primary reason for rezoning this property is not for a change of use that's not allowed under the current zoning. It's to get out of certain design requirements. And if we allow it here, are we going to suddenly give exemptions for all the overlay districts throughout the city? And I think there might be some bad precedent being set here, so please consider that as we move forward. Also, please consider any plan that is put forward needs to blend with the existing neighborhood. The River Road Overlay District basically is bordered on the north by 9th Street. My home is part of it. I wasn't the one who pushed it, but I'm fine with it. However, the people who did push it are in this room, and now they're trying to get out of the same design considerations that are on my property that I wasn't necessarily pushing for. So I think we need to think that we do want a neighborhood that's the old walkable urban style. We should make this, as much as possible, fit into that. Also, please consider the issues of connections. As you can see on this, if you were somewhere on the west side of this and you need to get to the east side, it's going to be a long bike ride or hike around it. So part of the grid system that we've tried to work hard to bring to this area is going to be destroyed by this plan. And we might reconsider the issue of gating the apartments so that people could walk through them and things like that. With that, I would also say one other thing we might consider is construction materials, which also fit with the design of the existing neighborhood. And I think that's largely on Planning Commission, but these are all issues that we should look forward. Bering Cross definitely wants growth. We want the right kind of growth. We want to put a development here that will help the development of Bering Cross. And with this, I can't say whether it will or not. So please consider all these issues moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Mayor and Councilmen and Councilwomen. My name is Kyra Brown, and I'm also a resident of Bering Cross and a former member of the Mayor's Youth Council of North Little Rock. I just wanted to say one of my major concerns is gentrification, and I agree with what Nick was saying before, but I also think what should be taken into consideration is one, and I'm not sure who deals with this, but as far as the income or the prices of these apartments, and also keeping the style of the community, making sure that this development blends in with the community and doesn't feed into the gentrification problem. And so I don't know how many Bering Cross members we have, or even just members of any other neighborhood, how you would feel about voicing your opinion to, I guess, outside sources coming into your neighborhood, deciding what it should look like, something should look like that's a part of a neighborhood that you've been a part of for so long, however long that you've been into. So please keep in consideration the comments about this new development coming up. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, would you please call that legislation so we can ask Alderman Taylor to follow? Yes, sir.
Can I slip in under the wire?
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor, council members. My name is Todd Rice with the Hathaway Group. I represent the developer out of Dallas that's proposed to purchase the land to do this. We've talked with many of the neighborhood members. We've met with the city on several occasions. Just some of the things that have come out of these meetings, we have gone back with the developer, gone to the engineers and the folks that own the land that we're purchasing this from to try and come up with a plan that benefits everyone. Because we don't want to come out and try and push an agenda or push a project that everybody can't get behind. And so just very quickly, Jim Irwin touched on a lot of these points, but the new site location is a direct result of the sellers of the property and the developer and those of us here close that work with all of these folks trying to come together to put together a development that can be accepted by everyone. For the most part, we're never going to put out 100% of everything that everybody wants, but we're sure making an effort to get it done. The traffic problems that were originally brought to us when we were on the far east side, the traffic problems created by that and the roundabout were very evident. We think that moving to the far west alleviates a lot of the traffic problems, and then also, as you can see, it further enhances the ability to use the bike trail. This opens up that whole stretch of River Road, which from the very first time we met with the city, this was one of the primary issues brought to the forefront. And as you can see, we've taken the time to go back. We're going to go back through planning because that's the process that needs to happen. We're going to go back through the city council after planning, hopefully. And we've addressed these issues, and we want to make sure that everybody's on board with that. To touch on some of the comments regarding building materials and the fabric of the neighborhood, I personally have been through and looked at the fabric of the neighborhood as far as construction styles and materials. I've relayed this back to the developer who, the first time he was up here, actually looked through there as well. One of the things that we want to do immediately in the first go-around with this, we were using exterior materials that were stacked ledge stone and stucco, as an example. We're taking the stone out of the deal and are going to go back, because as you drive through Bering Cross, you don't see stacked ledge stone anywhere. And so it makes sense to try and use an exterior material that is much more agreeable and much more prevalent throughout the neighborhood. So we're going to come back with a masonry material, a brick. We're going to try and match it to as close as indigenous colors as we can get on the masonry throughout the neighborhood. We are trying to deal with the design intent. We feel like we're making an effort. As Jim said, we've met with 15 or so members of Argenta and Bering Cross neighborhood for an hour and a half the other night. Took a lot of good, positive comment away from that. That's when we backed up and said, that's fine, we're going to go back through planning, back to the city. I'm going to continue meeting with the Bering Cross neighborhood. I'm going to meet with them next Monday night at their neighborhood association meeting so that they can share more and more of their thoughts with us, and hopefully we can get to a plan that everybody can get behind and embrace.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Question? Have a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. Rice, the original plan, was it 40 acres? I know that's a total of 40 acres now in the new plan, is that correct? Is it the same amount of acreage?
The original 40 acres.
It was 40 acres before, and now it's 40 acres.
Is that correct?
No.
Is that correct?
Yeah, no, well, the original plan, the boundary in yellow hatch is 40 acres. The blue obviously highlights the 13 acres that we're carving out of the overall 40.
Okay, so your future planning will involve the 13 acres then, correct?
Period.
Period.
The plan that I'm involved with, the plan we're discussing, the plan that's going to go back through planning and come to the city again, is strictly related to the 13 acres.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you can answer this question. Robert, you might be able to answer this next question. What is the distance from where the southern boundary or where 3rd Street would intersect River Road to where the river trail comes back up? You know, the river trail ducks down behind the church property and the railroad, the radio tower, the river trail comes from the little...
Yes, full council.
Yeah, it goes down and comes back up onto River Road. What is the distance from that point to the, where the property line is there?
About
It intersects
quarter of
with-
a mile.
About a quarter of a mile.
About a quarter of a mile. We'll need to continue to work with the neighbors to the west if we try to move the trail off of River Road to do something there.
So the plan would include closing River Road from back down to Pike Avenue, correct?
It certainly would allow us to do that because it would allow a through route, and then we could put some barricades and use that more for pedestrian or people type setting. The city owns all the waterfront to that point all the way to Olive Street. And, you know, it might be that we have a marina there or something along that line. But those plans are uncertain.
Sure.
We have a 60-foot right-of-way on River Road.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Certainly, I think an improvement over what we originally saw, and I want to acknowledge our appreciation to the developers about their efforts in being sensitive to, you know, both the city's interest as well as the neighbors' interest, which in large measure are pretty much compatible and the same. So we appreciate it, and we look forward to progress being made. Ms. Whitby, if you want to call that and then ask Alderman Taylor for his direction.
00952, Alderman Taylor, do you want it read?
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
An ordinance reclassifying certain property located on River Road, west of Division and south of 7th Street in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, from traditional neighborhood development to R4 classification, amending ordinance 7697 of the city of North Little Rock, second reading.
Mayor, I spoke to Mr. Rice earlier today, and I kind of threw out the idea of possibly doing a planned unit development for the sake of the concerns of the constituents in the area that has a concern of when the developer goes through his study, the feasibility study, that if things didn't work out the way they planned, and it being a R4, then they could pretty much put any kind of housing complex they want in there. If we decide we're going to go with the PUD, then they have design specifications that they have to adhere to. So I just want the developer to kind of keep that in the back of their mind that may be the best route to go for the whole. So not saying that that's what we're going to do, but that's where my mind is right now, is that for the citizens and for the city and the developer, it may be the best solution. So just have that thought.
With that, I assume you're directing that this be sent back
Back to
to
the planning
planning and basically removed from the agenda, subject to planning doing its work and then referring it back.
Very well put, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mr. Taylor. That was excellent direction to us. With that, Ms. Whitby, it seems to me that we have the public hearings and excuse me? Any citizen comment on any, I think that's pretty well all. I only see 48. There's a Bonnie Brent's, but other than that, 52 and 48 were the only ones that were listed. Is there anyone else that has signed up that has a comment? Well, I see anyone else. Bonnie Brent's listed a public comment, didn't list the item she wants to speak to. If that was on Barron Cross.
My name is Bonnie Brents. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes, ma'am.
Ladies. I wasn't commenting on the bicycles. I have a concern about a piece of property that we have bought on Quercher Street, 3809. We have completely remodeled the outside, and the neighbors next door have not lived there in some time, and they have bushes that needs to be cut down. We have talked to Mr. Epperson, and he said all his concern was the grass cutting. Well, it looks like the appearance of property would include ugly bushes also. And I wanted to see about getting those bushes removed or cut down, or where they do not look so ragged. And I would like some help on that, if you please.
Tell you what, I think our code office, this really should have come up, but it's fine in the general public comment section since it wasn't in any legislation. But is Tom Wadley, I know he's over there, so Mr. Wadley, if you'll start marching in this direction and say hello to Ms. Brents, and he's our code officer, and he'll find out if there's anything we can do to address that problem.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This pretty well concludes speaking on agenda items. If we could go to, unless you have any different direction, Ms. Whitby, on unfinished business?
RO9-118, Alderman Baggett and Gaines.
We're going to hold that one more time.
009-48, Mayor Hayes.
As I indicated, it's been read twice, amended, and held, and we'll vote on it next council meeting.
Okay.
And unless anybody wants to make an amendment, that's certainly available. Next item, Ms. Whitby,
New business, RO9-126, Mayor Hayes.
please call it.
A resolution reappointing Evelyn Lovelace to the Senior Citizens Commission.
Move for adoption.
Is there a
Second.
second on the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
RO9-127, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution reappointing Rick Ashley to the North Little Rock Airport Commission.
Move for adoption.
Second?
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height? And Witcher?
Yes.
RO9-128, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution reappointing Charles Jameson to the North Little Rock Advertising and Promotion Commission.
Move for adoption.
Second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor? Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
RO9-129, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution reappointing Dan Scott to the North Little Rock Public Building Authority.
Move for adoption.
Second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
R09-130, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution reappointing Joe Smith to the North Little Rock Public Building Authority.
Move for adoption.
Second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
R09-131, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution reappointing Todd Larson to the North Little Rock Public Building Authority.
Move for adoption.
Second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
R09-132, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a real estate contract for the sale of property known as the Arkansas Baptist Memorial Hospital.
Question.
Let's get a motion and then,
All right, move for adoption.
there's a second?
Second.
Let me just introduce this. This is basically the same thing the council adopted, I believe it was a 6-month period. Mr. Smith, if you want to come to the microphone in case there's any other questions, you can start marching in this direction. You know, the one difference, as I understand it, that I encourage be added, and it was added, is there has been some discussion from us about the possible location of our relocation, let's put it that way, of our 911 center, our emergency services office. If not the entire facility, at least a tower that might be beneficial by having it up there. And I was, you know, really not interested in selling property and then having to buy it back. So there's a paragraph inserted that basically says that should we make that decision prior to closing, that we would be able to reserve 1 acre and that the price would be deducted based on mutual agreement, and that if we couldn't, then the sale would be off and we would refund half of the earnest money that's been paid. And I'm trying to remember the exact amount on a monthly basis, but they have, you know, paid some already. And Mr. Smith, you want to come on up in case Mr. Witcher has any other questions? So this is essentially an extension of that existing contract. Let me ask Mr. Smith, while he's up there, you know, does this mean that if we should, just out of curiosity, if we how much have they been paying on a monthly basis?
$2,000 a month.
Okay, so does that mean that if we should not be able to come to an agreement that they would get half of that initial back, or just half of from now on?
From now on.
Okay. All right, Alderman?
Mr. Smith, couple quick questions. Okay, is there a time period that we will require them to go to exercise their option to acquire the property?
Yes, November the 8th. They have until November the 8th to acquire the property, to close on the property.
Okay. You know, not seeing Mr. Francis here, why haven't they closed before now?
Well, I can't speak for him, but they haven't got their deal put together yet. I mean,
Okay.
$2,000 a month, they're going as quickly as they can, I assure you.
Okay.
I believe he also had one partner change too, so that probably created some of the delay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Alderwoman Ross?
The 1 acre option in here will 1 acre be enough?
Yes.
It will? That'll be plenty? Okay, and then,
The 911 center is only about 6,000 square feet, and then we figured 40 parking spaces too, and all that can fit into an acre.
okay. And then my number one question, the Police Athletic League, as far as the haunted house at the hospital?
Yes, and that's one reason that we put it off until in November, to allow them to be there again, because that's they'll make $40,000 to $60,000, and so the developer said, well, we can delay until after Halloween, so.
So we'll at least get one more haunted house.
That's correct.
Okay? Good. Any other questions? There's a motion and second on the motion.
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Ordinance 0954, Alderman Height.
Please call it.
An ordinance allowing an off-premise sign for certain real property located at 4100 Glover Lane in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
I'm going to get Mr. Voles to come up to the microphone to kind of explain this. This is, we haven't done this very often since I've served as an alderman on city council, approved an off-premise sign, but in this case, I think we need to pay special close attention to the applicant's request. And can you kind of explain it to us, Robert?
I can. The Hilton Garden Inn is going in at the end of Glover Lane. They wanted to put up a pole sign. It would be better for that to be out on McCain. So they've worked with the bank that's on the corner, and the proposal, and I have a drawing if it's not included in the packet, but it would have a combination ground sign that would include the bank sign and the Hilton Garden Inn at that corner.
Right, the bank property is in between East McCain and the Hilton property, correct? That's the reason for the off-premise sign, a need for it.
This is a little larger picture, but the bank is at the northeast corner of that intersection, and so the Hilton would have a sign out on McCain, and then, of course, they'll have the three-story Hilton behind it with the sign up on their gable, which hadn't been installed yet, but hopefully that'll, of course, allow them to not have to have a pole sign on their property and help the city's image.
You didn't have any opposition from anybody out there concerning the sign, have we?
No, this is we don't have a sign overlay on McCain, so
I
this
understand
this
that.
should help that area.
They could rightfully so put in a pole sign, but
That's correct, on their lot.
I move we suspend the rules and place it on the second reading.
Where's question to him? Second, let's go ahead and, is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to suspend the rules?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes.
This is an ordinance allowing an off-premise sign for certain real property located at 4100 Glover Lane in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, second reading.
It was suspend the rules, placed on third reading.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take the third, and then I'll
right.
recognize Alderman Gaines. Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion, suspend the rules?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
This is an ordinance allowing an off-premise sign for certain real property located at 4100 Glover Lane in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, third and final reading.
Alderman Gaines?
I would like to see where the hotel really needs this, but isn't this the first off-premise sign we've approved in a long time? I don't remember approving another one.
It is, but it's just a modification of an existing ground sign to avoid putting up a pole sign there, but it'll get a message out on the main street.
Right. But aren't there several churches that have applied for off-premises signs or want to, and we
think they-
routinely tell them not to do it?
I believe currently they go to the traffic engineer for off-premise mall signs that are directional type things, but we haven't had an off-premise commercial sign in a long time.
I didn't think we had.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get a motion to adopt on third and final.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
He's second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
On the emergency, Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines? Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 0955, Alderman Gaines and Baggett.
Please call it.
An ordinance accepting streets and drainage improvements within Phase 23 Country Club of Arkansas in the city of North Little Rock, first reading.
We had some questions. We'll get Robert to explain
Okay,
this.
Mr. Boyles?
Yes, sir.
Well, we had some questions about it from the city council members while we're doing this.
Okay, there's a new subdivision that's been constructed, the streets are in, they're ready to start selling lots. This is out at the northwest part of the city, up off of Counts Massey. It's Country Club Phase 23, and the city engineer has been out, inspected the roads, he's passed or said the roads are in good condition, built to standard. So this is a normal procedure when a subdivider wants the city to take over the future maintenance. Now, they will be putting up a 2-year bond on the street improvements so that we can watch the streets for 2 years. If we have a defect found, that we can pull money and have those fixed. But they need to start building homes in our city, and they're asking for us to take over the subdivision.
And this is Tommy Wright's.
Yes, sir?
Okay, and this is the one right past, somebody asked me, the one right past the ball fields.
Yes.
Where it juts in, the
That's
ball
right.
fields are in Maumelle, and right other side of the subdivision, and that's in
That's correct.
in North Little Rock.
City
Okay.
annexed that around 91. Maumelle has since annexed around us, but it is in the city of North Little Rock, and they're building according to similar design as layout in Maumelle, which was approved by the Planning Commission. But they're ready to start building homes.
And Mayor, there's just a beautiful subdivision, it really is.
The streets are already,
Streets are built, they've been inspected, they've passed the inspection.
This is pretty much standard procedure.
That's correct. We just don't have a lot of subdivisions come into our city, and they have to ask, whatever the planning commission does, they have to go through this step of asking the city elected officials to accept the streets for future public maintenance, or it stays a private street.
We look forward to more of these things happening, and so I imagine the next motion should...
Suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules. He was ahead of me. Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
An ordinance accepting streets and drainage improvements within Phase 23 Country Club of Arkansas in the city of North Little Rock, second reading.
Move to suspend the rules, place on third reading, excuse me.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
An ordinance accepting streets and drainage improvements within Phase 23 Country Club of Arkansas in the city of North Little Rock, third and final reading.
On the question?
Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
On the emergency, Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson, I'm sorry, Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
Yes.
Concludes
Alderman
new
Gaines, I
business.
think we'd like to certainly compliment you on your legislation and challenge, anyone to bring similar legislation for the council. We like those kind of opportunities.
And Alderman Baggett.
And Alderman Baggett, I'm sorry, and Alderman
Wouldn't have it
Baggett.
here if it wasn't for him.
Both names are on it. I apologize for neglecting both of you.
Mayor.
Ward 3 is growing.
And if you haven't been out there, it's gorgeous out there. It's growing by leaps and bounds out there, and it's really nice.
We appreciate that. It is, as Mr. Voyle said, we haven't had this happen very often, and we're glad to see this take place. That concludes the agenda. I believe, Ms. Whitby, any council member, before I open it to public comment? We've got 3 that have signed up. Yes, sir.
I want to ask the city attorney if I could. Ms. Brents came through a while ago. They called me today about those bushes. The biggest complaint I've had is out there on 47th and Cher about those bushes that block the street level, been able to see, coming from both ways on 47th Street. Mr. Wadley indicates that there's not any legislation that we can do anything at all with the bushes. Is there any legally, do you know of any way, and maybe you need to think about it, but any way we can do anything when we're blocking the street or when they're unsightly in a home?
The purposes are normally different, but between why you would maintain bushes and, like, for example, high grass. The reason why we want people to keep their grass cut is because, insects, snakes, standing pools of water, and you have a breeding ground for pests that tend to, pour over on your neighbors and create a problem. Normally, you don't have that problem out of shrubs. The point that you bring up, just because somebody's shrubs are in front of their house and don't look well manicured, that doesn't necessarily make a health problem. You bring up a secondary problem when they're close to the street and you can't see around the street. And normally, our right-of-way extends onto people's, further than the curb, I would say, further towards a home than the curb. And the reason why we do that is try to stop encroachments, onto our right-of-way and onto our streets, and to allow people safe access to our streets, where, we don't want people turning corners blindly into traffic. They need to be able to see what's coming. And if there are shrubs that are blocking that, it's not a health issue from insects or vermin, but it's certainly a safety issue for traffic. And that's something that Mr. Wadley's correct. It's not a normal issue that code would deal with. But that's something that Tim Marvin might ought to go out and take a look at. And if he thinks those things aren't safe, then we need to assert some rights and get them cut back.
One of the things I would believe, Mr. City Attorney, and Jason, you can help me if I'm wrong, and that is if it's on our right-of-way, we have the ability to either ask or do it or clear it ourselves.
And we can. Right. We can. To the extent that it's interfering with our right-of-way, we can cut it. We absolutely can cut it. When it's on our right-of-way and it's interfering with the use of that right-of-way, we can cut it.
Just a follow-up question along the same line. I'll be real brief. There is I would say about 5 acres in the 3rd Ward, and another about 3.5 acres, 4 acres, that are among a lot of houses. The neighbors are really complaining about the unsightly, which is understandable, it's raw acres, okay? But along there, is there anything we can do about, they're concerned about snakes, they're concerned about, and Wada said we can't do anything. It's just like Burns Park or anywhere else, there's nothing we can do. But can we, close to the houses, require some kind of, leeway of 20 feet, 30 feet, it has to be cut around that area, or is there anything like that we can require?
No, the best thing that I could do is to meet with code and see if we can't come up with a
Okay.
decent recommendation for you.
Okay.
And I think that'd be the best idea than to sit here and guess,
Right,
you know,
'cause some
what we
neighbors
might
are-
could or couldn't do. But
Yeah, they're really wearing us out about it, and I don't blame them. Thank you.
but I think I could talk to code about it, and we'll see if we can't come up with an answer.
Alderman Baggett and then Alderwoman Robinson.
That was some of the things I wanted to address about what Alderman Gaines was talking about. On 48th Street, the city actually owns the property that extends over a block, a whole lot, past the street where 48th Street ends. The Quicks live down there, Tom Quick, Buck Quick, some of them. And it's just overgrown down in there. Snakes come out of there, mosquito fested, all kinds of things. There ought to be something, and I had talked to
You're saying it's our property?
It is on city property, it is. It shows the map, it shows on the map that way, a lot, a whole lot extends back into this area. And not only that, on Arthur Drive, they have the same problem there. Mr. Penny built some property, some houses there, and it's just grown up and infested. I mean, it's worse than Tarzan's jungle in there. I mean, it's bad. And no, and no legislation to clean that up or fix that or anything. But yet, we have legislation that your grass can't get over 8 inches, but these people can't go out onto their patios and stuff that live there, because of all this infestation that's growed up in there. Snakes come out there in their yard, and it's, something should be done. I hope can be done.
Well, if it's on our property, we've got the power to cure it, that's for sure. And to the extent that it's not on our property, if it's on a lot, then, we need code to engage, and they regularly do, to solve those kinds of problems.
Yeah, let me make a suggestion. Mr. Voles, if you would work with these two council members, certainly Alderman Baggett, to identify, what he's talking about, and whether it's our property or private property. If it's our property, then let us know, and we'll take steps to address it. If it's their property, also let us know, and we'll work with code and try to determine what rights we may have in terms of enforcing any ordinances that we have relative to private property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Robinson and then Alderman Height.
Well, I have a similar situation to Alderman Gaines, and I guess my question was going to be, if there's a sidewalk, how many feet past the sidewalk is the city? Because we put in a sidewalk, and there's the grass is all up near the sidewalk and trees, and people walking the sidewalk are afraid of snakes. So is that a code issue?
Well, it could be, but what I'm saying is that those sidewalks sometimes are on the far edge of our right-of-way, sometimes they're right next to the street, so it would sort of depend on, again, where it was, and we don't go trim all our sidewalks. I mean, we just don't have the manpower to go trim all of our sidewalks, so it would somewhat depend on what you're talking about and where that sidewalk is in relation to our right-of-way. And, I offer Mr. Voles again the ID where that line may very well be drawn, but it's not necessarily dependent on where the sidewalk lies.
Okay.
I mean, the sidewalk is on our right-of-way in most every instance, but sometimes it's closer to the street than further away. Alderman Height.
I just wanted to correct a faux pas that I made the last council meeting when the question was asked, how many, where we have bike lanes, and Bob Rhodes was back there trying to flag me down or whatever. We've got quite a few feet, if not miles, of bike lanes painted and with emblems in Burns Park that I failed to admit. And just recently, last week, the new bike lane that's on the Burns Park side of Military behind the baseball field, the Legion Field, emblems were put on it. I think I talked to Willie Alessandro, and they had some problem with motorists using those bike lanes, thinking it was it was 2 lanes there. So they got bike emblems on that there. The other thing is that I want to make everybody aware of a new 4-mile loop that was created when the paved trail between the ADEQ building and the Arkansas Surgical Hospital out at North Shore Business Park was paved recently. Now there's a 4-mile loop that the cyclists are using by going up that trail alongside the Campbell Lake Trail that branches off from the Campbell Lake Trail, goes up into North Shore Business Park. And myself included, several cyclists are now making that loop and coming back down Cook's Landing Road, which brings up the need for me to discuss with Mr. Marvin and you, Mayor, about placing sharrows on Cook's Landing Road because of the increased volume of cyclists that are using that road now because of that new 4-mile loop that we have searching for a name for, too, by the way, Mayor.
I visited with Mr. Pfeiffer, and we certainly agreed that he, since he donated the majority of the property, that we would defer to his naming. And I think he has pretty well settled on something. I just want to confirm it with him, and then we'll have a naming opportunity. At least put the signs up, and if he wants to be here, he's out of town now, then we might delay it a little bit. If not, we'll go ahead and put it up. The other thing that we want to emphasize again, that trail is a non-motorized trail, and because I understand that some motorbike or bikes have had an opportunity to use it, so the signs will be going up. That again underlines the fact that it is non-motorized.
The other thing, we might need some signage pointing to where that trail intersects North Shore Business Park too. And if you don't know it's there, you can ride back past it. So I mean, we might.
That's part of the signage that we're talking
about. For Pfeiffer loops, okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor and then Alderman Ross.
The second meeting of the North Little Rock Youth Master Plan Task Force will be Thursday at 6 o'clock at the UAPB at 13th and 13th of May.
Thank you very much. Alderman Ross.
This is an email that Alderman White and I received today. I just kind of like to read it. It just kind of, it goes along with, share the road, also share the trail. This is, it says, Dear Alderpersons Ross and White, as was stated during the last council meeting, you cannot legislate good manners. If the council feels it necessary to outlaw harassment of cyclists or by motorists for safety reasons, please include the same protection for pedestrians from cyclists. Although, as a practical matter, enforcement against cyclists would be almost impossible, no police officers on the river trail and no license plates on the bicycle. A 30-mile-per-hour automobile passing too closely to a bicycle does pose a threat to the cyclist, as does a 15-mile-per-hour virtually silent bicycle pose a threat to a walking 6-year-old if it passes too closely. We have been cursed and forced off the trail by cyclists while walking with our grandchildren on the river trail and on the wooded, flat trails in Burns Park near the covered bridge. When we were forced off the wooded trail, one of the lead cyclists yelled, "Get the," I can't say it, out of the way. As his dozen or so companions rode by, they either acted embarrassed or offended and offered apologies as they passed by. I believe just with the motorists, it is a very small minority of cyclists that is abusive and dangerous.
And I think we all agree. Alderman Witcher.
Just a quick note. Last Thursday, a number of the council members met regarding the changeable copy signs, what we refer to as the LED signs. The general consensus to present to the public and to the balance of the council was to ask for an additional moratorium on those signs for a period of time. And what we'd like to do is to, and I know it's irregular, to set a public hearing before the legislation gets here, but I think the legislation will be posted next Tuesday, right, Mr. Carter?
Yes, it will.
For consideration for the council, and so the public will have some time. I think we had indicated that we wanted to finish by the end of September, and I think that'll give us an ample opportunity to do that. As we work through the issues and talk with one another in our meeting, there were several things that we figured out. Number one, there's a great deal of litigation around the country and adjacent to Arkansas right now regarding these signs. And so a lot of the issues that we've been grappling with have not been decided by the courts. And so one of the things that we thought was perhaps, if we would give a reasonable time for some of those issues to be resolved, and then we'd have some guidance in them. The second was that, that we did need to work with the existing signs that we have to provide some guidance with them. Of course, a lot of those will be grandfathered in, but we wanted to provide some type of management for that. And the other thing was, I know some folks will be disappointed because they'd like to put those signs in now, but what we want to do is to come up with a policy that both manages the signs in a responsible manner and is reasonable, and also protects the general residential areas. I think as one of the council members said, we don't want North Little Rock to look like Las Vegas or Chinatown with all the blinking lights. And so those are the goals that we're working toward. And of course, my personal preference would have been if we could have sat down and hammered out some issues to present to the public and to the council. But I think probably this course of action is a great deal more reasonable and will give us some time to work through. And that being said, I don't think we want to just sit down on our hands and do nothing during the period of time that'll be recommended. And perhaps we can, with Mr. Carter's guidance and with Robert's guidance, come up with some general policies that'll make this workable for our community. So,
Are you requesting a public hearing for the next meeting?
yes, ma'am.
Why don't you work with Ms. Whitby so we can exactly title it I know it's on our sign.
Changeable. How about changeable copy?
Electronic changeable copy
Copies,
signs.
yeah.
Okay, that's
That'll work.
just so, be happy to call a public hearing on pending legislation to be entitled changeable electric copy signs.
I think electronic changeable copy signs.
All right. Fine, it's done.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a comment.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I was waiting. Jeff Kaplinger with the Parks and Recreation Department wanted to be sure that the community knew that auditions will take place tomorrow for the Pied Piper at the Glenview Community Center. The auditions are from 10 until 12, and the only thing that they ask that you come with is with a smile. And so they're encouraging the youth of the community to get involved.
Speaking of smiles, we've got 3 people who signed up. Any of those who want to address the council, you've got your 3 minutes. And if for some reason all 3 of you don't want to do it, that's okay too. Mr. R.
I'd like to let the public know, and I'm surprised Ms. Ross has not brought this to everyone's attention. The North Little Rock Police Department is coming out with a book about the history of the police department, 1904 to 2009. And I believe they will find that they had some of the same problems we're having today. But if you like history, you can buy this book, and Miss Whitby has the small print since my eyes won't focus on it, and she will now tell you the rest of it. Thank you very much.
Well, this is a 9 by 12 inch limited edition, approximately 112 pages, full of historical text, numerous photos that have never been seen before, beautiful hard copy edition with handsome embossing. Reserve your copy today. You can call Faye Brown at the police department, and the deadline to reserve your copy is September the 15th.
How much?
The regular copy is $45 plus tax. The leather-covered black collector's edition is $70 plus tax.
Okey-doke. Next to anyone else who signed up. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion.
Ross? White?
Yes.
Taylor? Robinson? Gaines? Baggett? Height? And Witcher?